Spring has sprung, and that means gardeners near and far are gearing up for the growing season. You can almost hear them shaking off their cabin fever, digging out their garden tools, and dreaming of the day they'll be blessed with the fruits of their labor, and the vegetables of their labor, and the herbs and the flowers. The first step in turning those dreams into reality is right here in these little seed packets. Now, given soil, water, and reasonably warm temperatures, most garden seeds will readily sprout and grow outdoors. Even so, many garden plants will benefit from an indoor head start, especially in cooler climates with shorter growing seasons. In fact, in some areas, getting certain heat-loving plants to mature outdoors pretty much requires indoor seed starting. But whatever your location, starting plants indoors allows them to produce flowers and/or food crops earlier in the season. It's a fun, easy way for your customers to help maximize the yield of their gardens, and what's more, it can be a lot less expensive than buying nursery plants. In the next few minutes, we'll give you some tips to help your customers get their seeds off to a great start. The ideal time for seed starting varies by plant species and by your location. Some plants grow more slowly than others, and since most garden plants are very sensitive to cold weather, you need to make sure there's no danger of frost when you're ready to transplant them outdoors. Many seed package labels offer rough regional guidelines, but customers who don't have this information can determine appropriate seed starting times by doing some quick research into the plant and the local climate and growing season. Now, many customers will purchase fresh seeds for indoor starting, though some customers may have older ones, usually extras saved from previous years or seeds that were given to them by other gardeners. If a customer will be using seeds that are older than last season or seeds of unknown age, they would be wise to test the germination rate before planting because seeds lose viability as they age. Germination testing will help reduce the chance of wasting precious time and garden space on seeds that won't grow. Here's how it's done. To give the test seeds time to germinate, your customers will need to begin the test several weeks before they want to start their seeds. For each variety to be tested, you need at least 10 seeds, a wet but not dripping wet paper towel, and a plastic food storage bag. It's okay to use more than 10 seeds if you have a lot. The more seeds you use, the more reliable the result will be. You'll also need a spray bottle, and if you're testing more than one seed variety, you'll need a marker to label each bag. For each seed variety to be tested, line up the seeds on a wet towel, roll them up loosely in the towel, then put the towel in a plastic bag. Seal the bag and let it sit in a warm place for about 2 days, undisturbed. A place with a consistent temperature of about 70 to 80 degrees is best. Then, check the seeds daily thereafter. You may need to spritz the paper towel with water every so often to keep it moist. Just don't soak it. The test is finished when one of the following 3 things happens. 1, all of the seeds have sprouted. 2, at least one seed has sprouted and then no more sprout for several days afterward. Or 3, the normal germination time has passed. If you don't know what the normal germination time is for a particular seed, you can check a packet of similar seeds to get a rough estimate. Most viable seeds will sprout within about 2 to 3 weeks, though many varieties will sprout faster. Some take a bit longer. When the test period is over, calculate the germination rate for each variety by dividing the number of seeds that sprouted by the number of seeds that you tested. Then multiply by 100. For instance, if you tested 10 seeds and 9 of them sprouted, the germination rate would be 90%. If you tested 20 seeds and only 10 of them sprouted, the rate would be 50%. Then you can either throw the test seeds away or plant them. Once you know the germination rate of the old seeds, you'll know how many plants you're likely to get if you plant a given number of those seeds, which gives you a basis for determining whether or not the seeds are worth planting. A germination rate of 100% is ideal, but anything down to about 70% isn't too bad. If the rate is much lower than that, you may want to try overplanting the seeds. Once your customers are ready to start their seeds, they'll need some appropriate containers and a seed starting medium, both of which we'll discuss in more detail in a moment, along with a garden trowel and perhaps a pair of gardening gloves to keep their hands clean. And of course, they'll need seeds. They may also need 1 or more grow lamps if there isn't sufficient natural light available where the containers will be placed. Customers who are starting multiple seed varieties will also want to have a way of labeling the containers, which could take the form of anything from stickers on the the containers to seed packets on garden stakes. Incidentally, some customers may be interested in purchasing seed starting kits such as this one, including both a growing container and seed starting medium. For the most part, any type of clean container with good drainage will work for seed starting. Empty flats are ideal for this purpose. Peat pots or peat strips are great choices as well. These are pre-formed, biodegradable pots made of peat moss. Once the seedlings are ready to go outdoors, you can simply plant the pots. A quantity of small flower pots would also work well for seed starting. Customers who are interested in economizing as much as possible could even use egg cartons with holes poked in the bottom of each egg cup to provide drainage. Whatever containers your customers use, they'll want to put them in plant trays to hold any water that drains out. They should also be aware that previously used containers need to be sterilized in a mild bleach solution, about 1 part bleach to 10 parts water, before filling them with seed starting medium. Cleanliness is very important to prevent disease. As for the seed starting medium, your customers should not use just any old dirt. Good quality pre-packaged seed starting formulas are best because you know they'll be free of weed seeds, insects, and disease-causing agents. Commercial seed starting formulas are frequently a combination of peat moss and vermiculite or perlite. To prepare the growing containers, fill each one to overflowing with seed starting medium, packing it loosely. If you pack it too tightly, the seedlings may not be able to emerge. The top surface of the medium should be level with the top of the container so that air can flow across. Airflow will help prevent the common fungal infection known as damping off disease, which kills young seedlings. Damping off disease is usually an indoor phenomenon, but it can occur outside as well. It's transmitted by airborne fungal spores, so it can spread quickly from one container to others. The disease thrives in cool, damp, dark conditions without good air circulation. So if your customers will be starting their seeds in an area where the air doesn't circulate much, suggest that they keep a portable fan turned on nearby. Keep the fan on a low setting and don't point it directly at the containers. The goal is to provide gentle airflow, not a whirling cyclone. With the containers all filled, it's time to plant the seeds. What we'll show you here are some general guidelines for the process. Your customers will want to refer to their seed packets for seed-specific planting and growing information. Generally, it's advisable to water the growing medium before sowing the seeds. Then, if you accidentally overwater, you can let it drain before planting. It's very important to sow seeds at the proper depth, which should be specified on the seed packet. Plant them too deep and they'll exhaust their energy and die before they can reach the surface. Most seeds need to be covered with just a little soil, while others, mainly really tiny ones, shouldn't be covered at all and should be watered by lightly misting the surface. Keep the medium moist at all times until germination occurs, but never soak it because soil that's too wet will rot seeds and drown roots. Remember, they need oxygen as well as water. Use only room temperature or slightly warmer water, as cold water would shock the fragile plants. Placing the containers inside plant trays filled with gravel will facilitate drainage. In fact, some gardeners prefer to water containers from underneath by filling the plant trays with gravel, then putting the water in the gravel. The growing medium can then soak up the proper amount of moisture. What about light? Some seeds, such as lettuce and petunias, require light to germinate. Others, such as pansies and verbena, need darkness. Still others don't care either way. So depending on the seed variety, the containers may require either a sunny spot or a very dark room or closet until germination occurs. Whether or not the seeds needed light to sprout, once they've emerged, the young seedlings will need a lot of light to thrive, at least 12 hours a day ideally. Your customers may need to supplement insufficient natural light with one or more grow lamps. Place the light source about 6 inches above the seedlings, keeping it on as needed until it's time to transplant outdoors. Be certain to turn the light off every night so that the seedlings get a nightly rest period. Also, take care to avoid getting water on the electric lamps and plugs. Once the first true leaves appear, your customers may want to thin out the smallest and weakest seedlings to benefit the stronger ones. To do this, use sharp scissors or pruning shears to cut off the weak plant stems at soil level. Don't pull them, or you can end up pulling out the stronger plants too. So, how will your customers know when their precious little plants are ready to go outside? Well, for most seedlings, a good rule of thumb is that they're old enough to survive the act of transplanting when they have at least two sets of true leaves. That could take anywhere from a few weeks to a couple months after sowing, depending on how fast the seedlings grow. Keep in mind that the first leaf-like parts you see on a seedling aren't really leaves. They're actually food storage cells called cotyledons. And of course, as I mentioned earlier, the low temperatures in your area will need to be warm enough for the seedlings to survive outdoors. That means if there's an unexpected cold snap around the time your customers are ready to do their planting, they'll need to hold off until it passes. If you happen to encounter a customer who started their seeds much too early, you can help by advising them to thin out any weak plants, then transplant the remaining ones to larger pots until the weather warms up enough to plant them outside. Okay, the seeds have been sown, the seedlings have sprouted and grown, and they're all set for their first taste of the great outdoors. Your customers can just take them outside and put them straight in the ground, right? Wrong. Have you ever plunged into the deep end of a swimming pool on a hot, sticky summer day without so much as sticking your toe in the water first? Well, that's the same kind of shock you'd give the seedlings' little systems if you just plunked them down in the garden to fend for themselves with no adjustment period. You need to do what gardeners refer to as hardening the plants. This is a gradual process that should occur over a period of about 2 weeks. Move the seedlings outside to a protected area in sunny weather for about an hour or two on the first day, then bring them back indoors. The next day, put them outdoors a little while longer, then a bit longer the next day, and so on, gradually increasing their exposure to wind, sun, and temperature fluctuations. Be patient. If you try to harden seedlings too fast, they could weaken or stop growing entirely. When it's time to transplant, do so on a cool, cloudy day if possible, so that strong sunlight won't wilt the seedlings before they have a chance to settle into their new surroundings. And there you have it. Now that you know more about indoor seed starting, you're all ready to help your customers get their seedlings off to a strong start and boost their potential for a bountiful harvest.